13 present, 1 absent.
13 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum. On to agenda item number 2, public comments. Clerk Spencer, is there anybody this evening who has signed up for public comment?
Yes, we have one, and it is the person, Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Mr. Pagash, I ask you to approach the microphone. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys. Mike, when I made my statement, I wasn't referring to the fact that the council members know. It's the failure of the public to know. I doubt if the public has copied 100 copies of this budget and are even looking at them. You got a hard time for them to look at the paper. So that's the cause. There isn't one of these outfits that come up and says, I spent $7 million last year, but now I need $9.5 million. And for the clerk, you're kind of dragging this meeting out by continually asking these aldermen how they're going to vote. It's yes to anything. So there's no need to start rattling off their names. It delays the overall outcome, but for us that have been here on a regular basis, we know how it goes. We are, at times, somewhat bewildered. There's been a failure for the education of the aldermen to say no to anything. So you'll continue to budget. I do appreciate the fact that after the commentary to the public, we do have a communications body for $75,000, plus the $15,000 or $20,000 that we given to the Chamber of Commerce, plus all our consultants that have run around and talked to businesses, and as they watched Rotec go down the road and Plaza go down the road and all the restaurants that have lasted a month and gone down the road, I guess they need that garage, because all of a sudden Addison is going to spring like weeds from the cracks on the sidewalk. So continue on. I'm assured the bodies here have a need for more money. They can do without less. And since they'll be all yes answers, there's really no need to stick around. I would ask Kennedy, though, if he would kind of consider in Public Works 35-gallon garbage cans. I'm having a damned of time pulling that thing out to the street. That's 65.
That's all who signed in, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, is there anyone else in the audience at this time who do not have an opportunity to sign up for our Committee of the Whole sign-in sheet? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, business before the committee, and that is continued discussion of our budget. City Manager Grabowski, anything you want to add before we get started?
We left off at the legal budget, and I would just turn it over to Marilyn to talk about how we got to where the numbers are.
Okay, let's see how far we get. As I've stated before, it's my intention not to go past 10 o'clock. When we get close to 10 o'clock, we'll see where we are in the list, and at that time, we'll discuss also future discussions and set up meetings. So let's not forget to do that. Yes, Alderman Gutenkopf.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I know you don't want to go past 10 o'clock, but could you just refresh my memory on our total calendar and the final date we have to have the budget moved by?
Yes, let me pull up my calendar. Right now, I can tell you with the big assumption, if we had finished tonight, there was the intent not to have any discussions on the 12th. There's the intent not to have any discussions on the 12th, since that's committee, and then 2 full hours for the Han Street applicants. The idea would be to have a circle back on the 18th, and then if there's any additional meetings or discussions required, that could roll over onto the 25th, which is a committee night, but we are meeting. Ultimately, city staff is hoping that we'll be in a position to approve this budget on Monday, December 2nd, but we do have time a week or so after that if necessary.
Thank
Does that
you.
answer your question? Okay. City Manager Grabowski, the floor is yours. Oh, I'm sorry, is there another comment? Oh, very good.
The first department on the agenda tonight is the legal department, page 162. I say this every year, I'll say it again. This is one of the hardest budgets to budget because we truly have a hard time knowing what's going to be coming down the pike. We look at past history, what the current trend is, and that dictates the budget that we have put together for this particular department. I will point out just one line, the Labor Council line. You see that it's jumping in 2014 to 60,000 estimate, and that is because we have two contracts to negotiate next year, the police contract and the fire contract. Then it will go down again in 2015. If we were out looking at 2016, it would be up again because we have the Public Works contract that year.
Okay. Comments, Alderman Bram?
Yes, and I'm not going to actually speak to a line item because I have no idea, but I ask this question every year when it comes to legal. We instituted adjudication here in Elmhurst. I don't know how long it's been now, approximately maybe 3 years or so. I just want to make sure that we're evaluating this every single year to make sure that it's not a lose money situation for the city, but we're coming out in the positive every single year. So if Director Gaston, if you can speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
We are in our second year of this program, is that correct?
That's it.
Perhaps a bit longer than that, third. Our costs for the actual adjudication for our adjudicator annually is in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $6,000. The actual fines that come in through that process, I don't have a number to give you on that at this point. It is a once-a-month program, and it does cover our normal parking violations and some of our code enforcement violations. Both will be coming through that process. But off the top of my head, I'm going to say yes, it does pay. It definitely pays for itself, and it is a great service to those people who want to have their day in court, so to speak, but without going through the hassle of going to the county and going through that hassle, which they may not choose to do. So it is a good service that is being provided, and I do believe it pays for itself.
Great, thank you very much.
Alderman York?
What are the exact dates of the expiration of the police and the fire contracts? Are they the same?
They are April 30th, 2014.
For both?
For both.
Thank you.
Questions? No? Okay.
Sorry, Alderman York, was there a question there?
No, I'm done. I'm good.
Very good. Any additional comments or questions with regard to the legal line items? Seeing none, we'll move on. Mr. Grabowski. Oh, okay.
We're going to excuse Mr. Storino at this point. Next up is the administration and elected officials budget. I will touch on the elected officials first, and basically that is just a number that is dictated essentially by city code with the salaries of all the elected officials in there. Jumping back to administration on page 119, there are some items that I did want to highlight. First, and this kind of goes through the HR budget as well, is the compensation study that we're currently undertaking. There's nothing in this budget for it because we anticipate everything would be covered by the current budget. That study is still under process. The results will be going to the Finance Committee as soon as they're ready. Second item that I'd want to highlight is in the part-time wages. Last year, we had a full-time clerical person retire. We did not fill that position, and in fact, we removed that from the budget, and we will be bringing in some part-time clerical help this year. So we have a part-time position put into there. We talked about the,
I'm sorry, can you just say the line item that you just spoke to, City Manager Grabowski?
10-02, part-time wages,
On page 119, correct?
page 119. We had significant discussion about the marketing communications coordinator. We can touch on that again in visitors and tourism, which is next, but I think everybody understands where that position stands. And then the last, two other things I would touch on. One is the strategic planning that we have put in the budget. Excuse me, and that's under professional services. We do plan to move forward with that in the new year.
What was that, Jim?
That is line item 3052,
What was the description of it?
the
though?
strategic planning. And then the last item that I'd want to highlight is actually in the street and alley budget under line item 8015, and it is engineering for the 294 and County Line Road exit ramp. This is a project that I have primarily been the lead on in coordinating. The city manager has been the lead on with the city of Northlake and the Tollway Authority. And I know we've had presentation here most recently about that. The way this is working is the West Central Municipal Conference has been able to get some grant money for the design of that project, the Phase 2. The responsibility of the two municipalities is 20% of that. So Elmhurst share is 10%. So in that line item of street and alley, 8015 is $216,000, which again would be our share of the engineering.
It's on page 145.
Page 145. Pardon me, I'm sorry. We already talked about this. I know it's a circle back item, but I did want to highlight it under my portion where I primarily present, because I have been the lead on that for now. Once we get into design, that would obviously be turned over engineering for review. But that is going to be the City of Elmhurst portion for the design of that contract. The date for construction is sometime possibly in 2018 right now, the way the tollway has it laid out. We're talking to the Tollway Authority and anyone that we can about moving that up sooner than later.
So that's our portion of the slip ramp south on 294 that addresses, at this point addresses, I guess puts finality to the closing of the jug handle and allows semis an option to go straight east on North Avenue.
That's correct.
Okay. Great. Alderman Gutenkopf.
My first question is on page 121, the part-time wages for elected officials. Is this a different dollar amount than our 2012-2013 budget year because we had unfilled aldermanic seats? Is that what accounts for the discrepancy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alderman Levin.
Thank you. Mr. Grabowski, on page 119, line 10-02, you said that we were increasing part-time wages and there was some sort of a full-time offset, but the full-time wages on 1001 for this year are about $354,000 annualized, and then it looks like it's going up by $40,000. Are we cutting out a position and adding another position, or those? Well, let me put it this way: what's the difference in the wage full-time?
The difference would be the proposed position for the marketing and communications coordinator.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for City Manager? I'm sorry, Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you. I'd like to add on page 119, item 3012 to the circle back, please.
19.
What was that?
Item 30-12, consultant fees, I'd like to add that to the circle back.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Move on, Mr. Grabowski?
Thank you. Next is visitors and tourism. I know when Brian Berghager was here, we said we'd come back to that, and the biggest reason, of course, was the discussion of the marketing and communications coordinator position. As I said earlier in the last meeting, we do have funding in there for that position right now, with the anticipation that the person who is in that position would continue on in some capacity until the communications marketing position is filled. At that point, she would retire. Other than that, the significant dollars in here have to do with the community grant program and membership in the county visitors and tourism group.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what is your expectation of the timeline of getting the new marketing position hired? And is this an opportunity for us to reduce the proposed budgeted amount for this position? Because it's certainly not going to take all 12 months to get this person up to speed. Or are you expecting that the visitor tourism person will work more hours than normal to get the new person up to speed? The numbers we have in the budget for salary are the entire year's worth of salary.
I would anticipate 3 months to make the recruitment, get the person on board. Perhaps another month for the visitors and tourism, the current person to be on staff.
So maybe we only need a quarter of this amount that's shown in the budget for the salary for this position.
Yeah, yes, we can go back and look at that.
And I'd like us to do that, maybe it's a circle back.
Okay, Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're approaching this season on page 168, 60-07, holiday decorations. I can't even say the word. Holiday decorations is always a flat number of $24,000. From year to year, do we reuse our holiday decorations? Do we repurchase them? How come it's always the same number year in, year out? Is there anything that we can do to possibly save some dollars in this line item if we don't use them every year?
These are funds that we divide among the 3 business areas, the City Center, York and Villette, and Spring Road. And so we have a flat amount that we give to them for decorations, and then each group coordinates. Whether they reuse decorations year to year, I don't know.
What were the 3? City Center, York and Villette, and what was the?
Spring Road.
Spring.
Additional questions? Seeing none, we'll move on.
The next department is the Finance Department. And there are a couple of things I would like to point out there, and we're looking at page 123. In the part-time wages line, 10-02, you see the budget is projected at $38,000. What we have in there is a part-time individual that's been with us for several years, and also an intern. So last year we didn't have that in the same place when we had for partial year. So that accounts for the increase on that particular line. For the most part, the finance budget is status quo. I would like to point out just one more, the 3005 banking expenses line. You can see that just growing, and it is due directly to credit card fees. Credit card fees that the city pays for our customers coming in and using their credit card to pay whatever they can pay for here at City Hall. That could be their water bill, their parking ticket, that could be their permits for new building. Our cost just for banking, is under control, is about $1,000 a month, and that is allocated here, so it's all relative. Some of our banking expenses, we do allocate out to other areas, but relatively, you'll be able to understand when you see this line growing in other areas too. But the remainder, it's about, for the finance group, which is the biggest area, it's about $7,500 a month for the credit card fees. Those fees just continue to grow up again because people are using their credit cards more, and the more exclusive a person's card, it's gold, it gets double points, it gets all those things. Each card costs the city a different amount. Every single card has a fee attached to it. We will be looking at this in January. Staff will be bringing it to the Finance Committee to just get more educated on it and what alternatives do we have in terms of any participation in cost by residents. Or I should say users, because it's not only residents.
Alderman York.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we talk about this every year too, but is this due to more just is a direct relationship to more revenues, or are there just more people using their credit cards now than there have been in the past?
I think there's a little bit with more revenues because the builders are getting their permits and coming across the hall and paying for them with credit cards, and those are not small dollars. But a lot of it is people are just using their credit cards more. I mean, they're racking up points, and they're doing same thing that I do.
Right. And then as a, may I follow?
Yeah, absolutely.
These credit card fees, are the MUF fees inclusive in this number, or are there more in the MUF
They're
funds?
more in, yes, they're allocated there.
Okay. And then, I guess finally, to go back to what you were talking about, bringing it to committee in January, I think is a great idea. I think we need to understand what other municipalities are doing with regards to users' convenience fees, I guess is what they're called now, pretty standard, but I think it's something that we need to look at here too.
Right.
So, and just collection costs in general, I mean, trying to promote direct debit ACH transactions on utility bills. Now that would be under MUF, but those types of things.
But still, yes.
Any additional comments or questions? Okay, let's move on.
Okay, now. I don't want to take anything from it.
I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mr. Kopp to talk about the next few items.
Yeah, next, the Board of Police and Fire Commission. HR's liaison to that. Board of Police and Fire Commission basically is the hiring of police and firefighters. I don't know if there's any specific questions.
Alderman Levin.
If we read what's in here, are we anticipating additional hiring more in the 2014 to officers?
For the 3052 professional services?
Yeah. I mean, that would be background checks.
Yeah, that's background polygraph checks for both police and fire. There was a test. They're working off of just a new test from the firefighters this year. There is a police recruitment going on right now. I think applications are due early December. And there's also psychological tests in there and the polygraph test, which is the majority of those funds in 3052.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments for Mr. Kopp? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Next is the human resource budget, page 126. Human Resources continues to support the city's mission by developing and managing employee resources, including staffing and recruitment, managing employee and labor relations, performance management, training and development of city staff, and compensation and benefits. HR also administers the city's risk management program consisting of claims investigations, coordination of claim management, including claim resolution and defense. HR is also liaison to both the Wellness Committee and the Insurance Committee. If you recall, the Insurance Committee last year was implemented. It has the labor groups and management in it, and it looks for ways to evaluate the benefits and explore options for saving and efficiencies. One of the things that's out this year, there'll be a new benefit plan offering is a voluntary vision, employee-funded vision insurance plan. Also, the committee's been working through the year, learning and understanding the impacts of the Affordable Care Act and the effects on the city of Elmhurst. The wellness program is also run by a committee with employee representations from all departments, including the library. And it looks at, the program is designed to be holistic, addressing the physical, psychological, spiritual, and financial areas of the life, and biometric screenings, weight loss programs, nutrition, health and wellness education, and flu shots are some of the programs that are offered through the wellness program. Beginning of 2014, as the city manager talked about earlier, we'll see the implementation of the new classification and compensation structure, as well as a new compensation policy. Also, as mentioned earlier, both police and fire collective bargaining agreements are up April 30th, and HR is a big part in preparing to get underway with the negotiations. Some of the highlights in the budget, line item 3052, under professional services, that includes $30,000 for organizational-wide training for performance management, supervisor training, employee development, safety and customer service, and harassment prevention. There's also $10,000 in that line item for organizational development for the management team specifically. I'll take any specific questions.
Any questions for Mr. Kopp? Alderman Bram.
Line item 6023, employee relations. I'm sorry, what was the reason for the increase from at least 2012, 2013 to this year to 25,000?
That's been pretty much standard. It's just what is used. And the thing of it is that's Elmhurst, that's service awards, that's employee events, and miscellaneous, such as flowers for births and illnesses and stuff like that. And the way the service awards goes, depending on how many people meet their service award for that time, it's usually, I think, around $10 per year of service, and those are on major yearly events.
So in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's not a big dollar amount, but it doesn't seem, at least in the fiscal years that we have before us, that we ever even came close to the 25,000. Shouldn't we trim this back by $5,000-$10,000 as a budget line item and have it become at least more realistic over the past 3 years that I'm looking at? I mean, I guess we could make it a circle back item.
Let's do that. Additional questions or comments? Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. On line 2004, it's the health insurance, and it seems like there's an increase here that's much bigger than any increases in other departments, or at least some of the other departments. Is there a reason why this one jumps up?
Mayor says a change in plans.
As elected, as chosen by certain employees? It didn't seem to be across the board, so just this reflects the choices of the individual employees. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Alderman Dunn.
Yeah, just on line item 3052, the professional services. What was the big ticket item this past year that was driving that large expenditure?
The compensation study.
Okay, it was that entire amount was for the compensation.
No, that was a big portion of it.
Okay.
Let's see what we have in here. That was around 65,000 of it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Next is the planning and zoning and economic development, page 130. The area of planning and zone economic development continue to focus on building a strong tax base for the city of Elmhurst. The focus continues to be on retaining existing businesses, attracting new businesses, as well as generating consumer interest in Elmhurst businesses. As part of those efforts, we've seen the Economic Development Commission continues to expand its role. The EDC has representation from a variety of professional backgrounds and has performed over 400 retention visits since 2010. And in 2013, the EDC assisted in the development of the Hahn Street RFP and made recommendations for strengthening the financial requirements of the proposed project, assisted in the selection of the Hauser-Levine for the North York Corridor study, which we just kicked off, and evaluated and made recommendations on the Edison Street development. Elmhurst continues to garner the interest of business and developers. with new businesses opening, ranging from Chick-fil-A, which we hopefully opening around February, to the Snuggery. The opening of Mariano's Fresh Market in 2013 has generated quite a bit of interest in North York TIF, and business and land inquiries are coming on a very regular basis. The old Waverton Hotel site has been sold, and the buyers are now in their due diligence period, and we hope of the closing on that property in the next few months. Also, the 150 Grand, the vacant Lincoln Mercury dealership, is now on the market, and we're looking forward to seeing that site being rejuvenated and repurposed. The city's been working with Elmhurst College Center for Professional Studies and their MBA program for research initiatives to assist Elmhurst in coordinating and developing marketing ideas for business and recruitment and consumer spending in Elmhurst. Over the past couple of months, we've been working with Elmhurst College in developing a study to help us determine why or why not businesses choose Elmhurst. Within the next few weeks, a survey developed by Elmhurst College will be going out to all new businesses in Elmhurst and 10 of our comparable communities to help us identify our strengths and weaknesses and overall have a better understanding of what business is looking for when identifying a location for their business. As you're looking through the planning and zoning economic development budget, I'd like to draw your attention to 3012 consultant fees. On the dais, you will see a breakdown of those expenses for Van Slyke, Bartels, and Feinzel Community Marketing. Line item 3052 professional services is $50,000, $25,000 for overall marketing, and $25,000 for any TIF services that may be needed. Lastly, line item 6025 public information programming, you will see an increase to this line item, which will be designated for marketing programs with a focus on economic development for such possible events as broker events, broker tours, or a possible consumer email campaign.
Mr. Kopp, was that last one you listed 6045?
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry, 6045.
Okay. Okay.
I do.
Comments? Alderman Gutenkopf.
I'd like to add lines 3012 and 3052 to the circle backs, please.
3012 and 3052 to the circle backs, okay? Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Next, the building department, page 136. So far in 2013, Community Development Department has issued over 2,280 permits with a total construction value of $70.7 million and collected $1.4 million in permit fees. Over 6,323 construction-related inspections were performed. Some of the notable projects underway and/or completed in 2013 were Mariano's, the new cancer center, which will be opening this week. As of October 31st, 96 new single-family homes, 28 new townhomes, and there are now 39 single-family home plans in the queue in various stages of review. Code enforcement addressed 517 code violations and had over 2,348 actions taken through inspections, follow-up inspection adjudications. We expect similar brisk construction activity, especially with respect to single-family homes in 2014. In an effort to adopt the most current model codes, the 2012 edition of IC series of codes, the building commissioner is in the process of reviewing the new codes and writing local amendments. We're hoping that these new local codes and amendments will see the DPZ committee yet this month of November. Also, I'd like to mention that lastly, there's been 66 reimbursements for the check valve program and 55 for 53 for the overhead sewer program. And to remember, to receive reimbursement, the clear water from the must be removed from the sanitary system.
Thank you, Mr. Kopp. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Kopp.
The next area is claims, page 163. This is another one of those that we go based on what we know right now, what's in the hopper, and just looking at trend. So, and these are claims, as you can see, they would be claims against the city.
Comments or questions? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you.
The next page is senior services. There really are not any significant changes here. These are all programs that are status quo. You know, the major programs in here are the Senior Assistance Program, run by Metropolitan Family Services. They are located here on the first floor of City Hall. And the other big item is the seniors taxi subsidy. That's, you see that number really, it fluctuates a little bit, but it keeps going up a little bit, but it's a very well-used program by our senior population.
Okay, any comments? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Yes, I have a question about the Youth Commission. We've not heard a peep from them for a while, and I was under the impression that the Youth Commission was relatively inactive, but yet it's still in the budget. Could we get an update on that?
Sure. We actually have 4 vacancies on the Youth Commission. I have been working closely with some of the members who are left. Joan Olson has really been spearheading it. They did have a meeting last week, which I got an update on. I don't believe there's going to be, probably in your next packet, 3 applications. So we've been working with the couple of folks, Joan Olson and Malia Smith have been working hard to recruit people. We've got 3 of the 4 filled, and I actually think they have another one. And once they get up to full speed, they said they want to come back to me and tackle some more items than they've done in the past. Traditionally, they've just been recognizing people in the community for their volunteer service, but they actually want to expand their role. So it was a little depleted when I took office, and I'm working with the group right now to get back up to full. That's where we are. Alderman Bram.
Thank you. Nothing in regards to these particular line items, but just senior transportation programs as a whole. I know we've discussed over the last few years, Ride DuPage, senior shuttle service, or a shuttle service in general. It obviously does not look like we're considering any of those options for this budget year. Is Ride DuPage still a applicable program throughout DuPage County? And is this something that Elmhurst is still at least going to consider in the future?
The Senior Commission is addressing this, and I believe they have a subcommittee put together to talk about transportation issues. I met with the chairman and I guess the chairman of the subcommittee not too long ago, just to kind of get up to speed, at least on programs that we have. So they will be making a recommendation on, I think, more towards the shuttle type service than the Ride DuPage.
I thought that recommendation was already made. That's why I was asking the question. When I was on Public Affairs and Safety, it was brought to the table, and there were some actions taken away from it, but I thought that was at least on the table. Maybe nothing finalized, but at least on the table.
That's correct. I would call it on the table. I believe there were some questions asked of the commission to go back and research, and so we're waiting for them to come back with that information.
Thanks, much appreciated.
Additional questions? Seeing none, we'll move on.
On to the next page, health services. 2 items on this page, ambulance service and mosquito abatement, and the budgets there are pursuant to the contracts that we have with both of those, for both of those services.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
I know that County Board Chairman Cronin has been looking at consolidating mosquito abatement districts. Is this something that may affect Elmhurst, and if so, how will it affect the budget?
There's been a task force that's put together at the county level and the DuPage Mayor and Managers group. From what I gather from them, it would not reach out to municipalities unless there was some kind of county-wide mosquito abatement put into place. Each municipality is different in the level of service that they're asking for mosquito abatement, so I don't know that that's going to happen. But what they have looked at is uniformity of contract and possibly economy of scale from the vendors.
And is there a time frame that you anticipate this may be enacted within?
The last I heard was I believe 2 meetings ago, when the mayor and I were at the mayor-manager's monthly meeting. So they're working at it. We've not heard anything about joint contracting or anything since then.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Okay, next item.
Okay. The next page is contingent line item, and the dollars that you see there that have been actual for the last 2 years and even the estimated for this year are all storm-related. So the costs that have been associated with big storms have gone into the contingent line item, and because we seem to have these storms regularly, we have budgeted $200,000 in there for each of the next 2 years. Again, if they're not used, then the dollars sit there.
Any comments? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Okay, the next page is cable television, and those you know as Jeannie Urick and her group. And the biggest part of the expense on professional services is really taping our council meetings and any committee of the whole meeting, any public meeting here that's with the whole council is being taped. And they do a lot out in the community also in terms of taping. There is a dedicated revenue source for this, the fees that come from the cable television, which is, I'm sorry, yes, franchise fees from cable television.
Alderman Bram?
Thank you. Not so much the last couple of years, but I believe, 4 or 5 years ago, this line item seemed to take a little bit of an uptick in regards to expenses. Is there, I understand that this is primarily city council meetings, but aren't I don't want to call them shows necessarily, but the broadcast with Bartels, isn't this encompassed in this line item as well?
The labor part, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would like to make this as a circle back, just to make sure that we're, I guess, broadcasting the correct items. Because like I said, 4 or 5 years ago, I think this was about $20,000, $30,000 cheaper.
We can put together a history on that. That's a pretty significant number, but we can certainly put together a history on that.
It might be my memory as well, but thank you, much appreciated.
Okay.
Additional comments or questions? We're at 10 o'clock, City Manager Grabowski. I know we have a second page here, and it looks like there's some pretty meaty topics on the second page. How long do you anticipate Ms. Gaston interfund transfer to take? Couple of minutes?
60 seconds.
60 seconds?
Seconds and...
Hold on, let me get my phone.
Yeah, then I would agree that that's a very good stopping point. The other part of the agenda is a little bit heavier.
Okay.
To say the least. The interfund transfers are transfers from the general fund going out to, in this case, 2 other funds. The first one is to the working cash fund. In 2014, that'll be the last payment of the repayment to the working cash fund for the almost $1 million loan that came through in 2009, 2010. And then the transfer to the debt service fund for the dollars that are the debt service that's attributed to the general fund. It's one of those accounting things that we do have to have a separate debt service fund, and dollars are transferred into that, and out of the debt service fund is paid the bills, so to speak, for the debt.
Okay. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mayor. As I recall, the working cash fund, that's what we refer to as a rainy day fund. If something bad happens, we've got immediate cash on hand to deal with it. And I heard you say that this would be the last payment?
This would be the last payment to repay the loan that was made to the general fund.
Looking at the entire budget, which is projected based on a 0% tax increase, the working cash fund will be paid off, or the loan from working
Correct.
cash will be paid off.
Yes.
So we'll have the working cash that we expect to have in.
It'll be at $1 million.
It'll be at $1 million.
And that's Per the current policy, that's as high as it should go. Anything over $1 million funnels back into the general fund.
So we'll have the rainy day fund, the working cash will be where it should be.
Absolutely.
We will be above council, I don't want to say mandated, but council recommended fund balances. And this budget still returns, or is approximately a $600,000 surplus at this point.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions? Okay, before we adjourn, as I mentioned in our last meeting, November 12th, next Tuesday is when we're meeting next, but that's committee and then followed by Han Street presentation. So we're on to the 18th, so we'll have a regularly scheduled council meeting and then wrap up the budget at that night, on that night, and then that means that we will definitely schedule circle backs for the 25th. Does that work for everybody? Okay, seeing nodded heads, that's good. Motion to adjourn. Alderman York, second by Alderman Levin. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.